So welcome everybody. My name is Lynette Robinson. I'm the co-chair of the Southwest County Council. I'd like to welcome everyone, and we'll go around the table and we'll do a roundtable introduction.
Okay, my name's John Boutte. I'm the other co-chair.
John Curran, I'm with Rapid Cemetery Group.
Bonnie Merritt, Cornhill.
Jen Begeman, Common Ground Health, and Healthy Kids Coalition.
Well, Neil Swan.
Marlene Reagan from the Office of Adult and Career Education Services.
Mary D'Alessandro, South Plymouth Avenue Business Association.
Don Sarnecki, 1980. Maybe I'll say something about Southwest Brewery.
David Collison, owner of Laundry on Arnett, and the development of the Arnett Rugby area, and various other business and community associations.
Janine Gardner, Changing of the Scenes Neighborhood Association.
Hi everybody, Harlan Knowles, President of the 19th Community Association.
My name is Pam Bowler, and I come because I live in the 19th Ward. I'm also a member in the Baptist Church.
Ah, great.
Welcome.
Thank you, Pam.
Rochester Public Library.
My name is John Olson, Spiritus Christi Prison Outreach, and co-chair of Prosper Rochester.
Oh, great.
Eleanor Coleman, Prosper Rochester.
Well, again, thank you everyone for attending this evening.
Thank you.
So now we have a presentation from John Curran. We're following up on the Brooks Landing Riverfront Rochester space proposal.
Before we get into John's proposal, I just want to make sure that we review for those who haven't been involved with this at all. Back a few years ago, there was, in order to compensate the community for having to cut off South Plymouth down by Brooks Landing there and deflected into the intersection of Brooks and Genesee, there was a clause written into the contract with the contractor who was building at that time. It was just the hotel. But then there was the Brooks Landing Tower that has housing for students. It was, the community felt they wanted a restaurant on the first floor. In fact, they wanted the restaurant before the tower was ever proposed. And that was written into the deed agreement. And on the back of your agenda, there's the part of the agreement that refers to the restaurant. And basically it says that if the person, the grantor they refer to here, which is Ron Christensen, the contractor who built the buildings, in order to use the space that they set aside in the building for anything other than a restaurant, they were going to have to get permission from the community, have a public hearing where he would present what else might be of interest. He hasn't been able to find a restaurant yet. Depending on who you talk to, maybe they haven't tried as hard as they could, or maybe they should have tried something a little different. At any rate, he came to the 19th Ward Community Association back in February, presented one possible thing that he and somebody from the U of R had worked out for having a foreign student center there. That didn't go over too well with the group that was in that day. And then in June, we started arranging to have our July meeting at the site of the proposed restaurant. We had about 25 people there, and the mood seemed to be one of agreeing that it would be hard to envision a restaurant using all that space and being able to make ends meet, since the cost per month would be around $50,000 or something like that. It was $10 per square foot per month, I assume that is. So it's a lot of overhead to cover. We invited people to come up with any other ideas they might have. Our hope is that we're not just going to let this peter away. The longer that space has been empty for 3 years, that's 3 years times probably $600,000 a year of rent or something like that, nothing's been happening, and that's a loss to the guy who owns the building, but it's a loss to the community also because we're not getting something useful out of it. So we just want to make sure that whatever gets put in there really satisfies needs that the community has, and that people in the community are aware of what's going on, so that if we get a surprise meeting called someday to approve this or that people really know what's been going on and what some of the options might be. Yes?
I just wanted to educate everybody a little bit that in order for him to get out of this covenant, Bay Muhammad or our commissioner can let him off of it. All right? And I guess all of you should know that he is saying that he can't, expenses, he can't afford this anymore. And I want you to know what he got. He got the land for $1. He got grants, he got tax credits, and he got 7 extra stories from us, which equates to millions of dollars, on top of what the building is worth today, which is a lot more money then. So if he thinks he's gonna cry, I don't have money, not gonna happen. All right, the other thing is that the covenant was very vague. They said restaurant space. In my opinion, the city and him never intended on putting a restaurant there. Because if they had intended on having a restaurant there would have been plumbing. There would have been the electrical. There would have been toilets. He didn't do that, all right? So the city let us down in the vagueness, and he really, if he intended to put a restaurant there, it would have been prepared as a restaurant space, and it's not. It also says he has to put forth his best effort to get it leased. Well, it's only worth what somebody's gonna pay for it. So if you don't keep bringing the rent down, you're never gonna get it rented. All right, so do we wanna let him out of the covenant? Do you think that a restaurant will be there? We all gotta come into an agreement what it is we want. Or the commissioner's gonna let him off the hook. I believe if we let him off the hook, he should pay for everything that we do want there. If we're gonna put a learning center there, he's gotta pay for it. Because in no way can he cry, I don't have the money. And one other little thing, I'm gonna tell you, his benefit agreement in hiring minority wage workers, he did for 4 months and he never paid them. It's all over the internet.
So I'd just like to add this, is that the final does come from the commissioner of NBD, but the commissioner of NBD cannot delay or change the covenant without the input of the public. So he has to follow, and it says it in behind here. He has to. It says absence such approval, the restaurant space within the housing restaurant building shall remain vacant. If the public still does not approve it, he cannot change it. Baya cannot change it.
So one of the things that has bothered me since our meeting there has been, well, there's two things about, okay, I'll say the first thing first. He never seems to be able to give us a list of who he went to. I would like to know who he reached out to, because Dana Miller apparently reached out to people. I would like to know who was reached out to that they're saying no option, because it is apparently a low amount, square footage amount, but I don't think it's fair or okay, reasonable to say, hey, I really tried,
And
And
we
we don't
accept
know,
it.
they won't give us any information about, well, who did you try with? Who said no? So that's one thing. The other thing is I want to also stay reasonable in the fact that when you were there and presented that Cornhill, which has a much higher capacity to support a restaurant, in my judgment, than the Southwest Quadrant, has struggled to keep restaurants. Mount Hope has tanked with restaurants. So I also want to stay
You're calling me.
open-minded to don't shove a restaurant
look at
in there
me.
and let us
I'm
be
not
another
doing it.
statistic, as far as restaurants bolting. But I would really
Yes.
like, but for us to make an informed decision, we really need to know, who did you contact?
And you're right. You're absolutely right, Eleanor, because one of the things was a lot of people say, well, we're going to hold them to it. Well, if you want to hold them to it, that's fine, but it would be worse for the community if it fails. And there isn't sufficient parking, and it's not a destination yet.
Absolutely. You're really, I've done some work on this, and I want to preface this because I don't want my dear friend over here to be hostile to me, because I love this man and I think his ideas are really good, but I think there's two different pieces of this. Not what we eventually do with the space, but this guy that came in. I don't believe he bargained in good faith to begin with.
No.
Number one, he didn't get permission until later to put all of that residence up
Right.
above.
And it's down
And
here.
he never made, there are codes that you have to do. For example, if we were going to put something on top of, do a restaurant here and we had people living up above, there's a whole bunch of things that you have to do to keep the smell and the noise and the whatever, but when you're doing the whole thing. So before he even built the thing up here, he was pretty sure that he wasn't going to get that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have valet
So are
parking
you saying it is
400
there?
miles away from the
It's
place,
not.
but nobody's
It's
going to
not.
park
It's
there.
not there.
No, it's not there.
Oh.
So there's a couple of things that are there. That there's no plausible way. When you drive to a restaurant, you want to park at the restaurant, and he only has
Limited
whatever. You have to
theory.
we have to all come on my motorcycle. I mean, it's just no place to park. So that's the other piece of it. So that he hasn't dealt in good faith.
No.
Only other thing that I would say is that because I've had lunch with a lot of people since for that day. I wanted to make sure that I kind of had an idea what we were going to do. There needs to be a public meeting, and I'm not saying that wasn't a public meeting, but the public meeting really needs to be well advertised and really promoted and so forth and so on. Now maybe nobody else will come that came, but it's a matter of how you let people know about a public meeting. So we need to have a public meeting to get them off that. I'll tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, the money, when you add up all of this money that he has gotten in terms of tax breaks and everything else on top of this, and the guy's making a good buck off of those students, he really wants the University of Rochester to come in and just do something and then pay him a lot of money to do it. And I really feel that we need to hold this guy to the fire and get him to pay for, you're absolutely correct, anything else that we're going to do. He should pay for the first year for the staff of John's project or whatever, but there's a lot of retrofitting that has to go into that building. The fact that he has no plumbing, no electricity, no toilets, I don't care. He says, well, you're not going to fit it for the restaurant that's going to be there. Hey, listen, somebody's going to go into a stall that says men and women. No matter where you're going to go, if you have a restaurant, you have to put bathrooms in, electricity, air conditioning, fumes, things, some kind of a vending system for the kitchen. There's been no intention whatsoever to do anything with this building other than what it is, and hope that somebody lets them off the hook.
Well, now that
Now, Mary, I can't believe it. We agreed.
No, now that Bonnie has brought up the 4 stories, all right, it was originally supposed to be housing, residential housing with 4 stories. And he got a minority woman's construction to come in so he could get grants. Well, after the 4 stories was done, he wanted to put more on.
That's right.
And she would not sign off on it because it wasn't set up for that. All right, you can't put 7 more stories on top of a 4-story building that doesn't have the footers. Well, we helped him get the variance for the fly zone because there wasn't supposed to be a building that big. All right, and he got the variance for the 7 stories. Fired the construction, minority construction crew, who she had minorities from the neighborhood. All right, he had another crew in there the next day and never paid them for months and months of work. So these benefit agreements, if you don't have it in stone, they hurt the people in our neighborhood because this is common practice.
Well, another thing that I want to add to that is that, and I don't know how he even got away with building on the site in the first place and taking Plymouth Avenue. That building, Plymouth Avenue could have gone straight through. The entrance to that building could have come off Plymouth Avenue with a drive-through, and then the riverfront could have been built up with a wall, or you don't even need a wall there, where people could have come out of the hotel and walked down the street or driven down the street and gone across to enjoy the riverfront, as opposed to moving the whole hotel, making a variance just for walking, where the hotel still could have everything exactly like it is, but only it would have been further back. He took that road, and there's no, I don't understand. I'm sure the community was vocal about it, but for whatever reason and however he did it, he got away with it. Also, in here, I have some copies, 4 copies of the deed and the deed and another thing that gives you all the information. But also, he's supposed to, as a part of the Brooks Landing Urban Renewal Project, there is an art project that was supposed to be a part of this that never happened. There was supposed to be an art competition, and there wasn't. It wasn't done. An artwork competition where artwork was submitted by local artists or proposals were submitted by local artists, and then it was supposed to be chosen. And a piece of art, an established piece of art, a piece of art that you can see really from a distance as you drive through the gateway of Brooks Landing and Genesee Street and Plymouth Avenue, and it's not there. We have a weed overgrown roundabout.
Now, may I ask you something? Isn't a bank supposed to be?
There's supposed to be a third building.
Yeah.
Yes, there was supposed to be a third building, a financial institution there.
And he was supposed to be.
And he says he cannot get the third building in, and he was in talks with Visions Federal Credit Union now, but that's not, there's really, when you look at the space and the traffic pattern, it's not conducive to a residential neighborhood or mixed residential commercial neighborhood. With the increase in foot traffic, with the increase in the students, with the increase in the biking, and plus you have the bikes right there, right? The increase in the biking, the new bus turn that somebody in traffic has put this bus coming down Brooks Avenue and turning to go up the Genesee Extension, where there's no room for the cars turning left onto Brooks. There's going to be an accident. My car, I almost got hit, so I was not a happy camper about that. There is destined to be a terrible tragedy that will happen at that intersection with increase in traffic, increase in parking, cars trying to park, people trying to get in and out of a restaurant with frustration on a Friday evening after work or what have you. You know, all of that builds up, and it's not a good scenario.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to make sure we did was come up with some feasible solution that would either give us a restaurant or something else that is useful, and actively vet this out, make sure that we have all our ducks in a row, that it's going to be feasible, that the money is going to be there to sustain it, to know exactly how much is it going to cost for whatever we put in there to function. And I've been afraid that if we just, take the attitude of, well, let them stew with it and get a restaurant in there, sooner or later, somebody is going to call the question and say, release them from that, and I'd like to make sure we have something feasible.
So, Oasis has a culinary teaching college, right, or teaching school, right? Why not develop a plan to have a teaching restaurant in that space run by Oasis that teaches like actual
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It does. It does. But so with that said, with tonight,
It's a
and
good
if you
idea
look
though,
at our-
because I had it too.
If you look at our agenda, with the introduction from John and the conversation that we've had now, we're going to address Mary's question, and then we're going to go into the only presentation that we have for a solution from the community. From parts of the community, we'd like you to listen with a very open ear to the proposal that John has for that space. We're not taking a vote on it, we're listening, and we're going to digest it and then return at a later date.
I just don't want us to leave this particular thing because only because I think that there's a real sentiment in this room that no matter where we go from here forward, that this particular individual who got this benefit from this financial benefit should somehow or other be making a significant financial contribution to whatever is going to happen to the place to help pay back the terrific tax benefits and low interest loans and whatever that this man got, because I think you're going to find that it ran up to a lot of money. I'll admit that they had trouble finding somebody. It's the same thing as like we would not have picked Rock 4 for our projects up there, and this guy, they recruited him from God knows where and got him in here. But I think that that's the biggest thing that I'm hearing here in this room as a group. We want somehow some financial reimbursement or repurposing that will go to whatever project is going to go into that. That's kind of the beginning.
Yeah.
So Mary has a comment, and then we're going to go
Yes.
into the presentation.
Lisa, I love you.
Lynette.
Lynette, well, your other name is Lisa.
Well, how do you know that I want everybody to know my AKA?
Okay.
So you didn't hear
To
that.
say
Take it out
that
of
the
the-
commissioner, that he has to get written approval from the commissioner to use alternative uses, all right? Let me tell you something. We can have public meeting after public meeting, and the city is gonna do what they want to do.
I'm just repeating what's written in the covenant.
So we have to be prepared with media and everything else. Just for once, say the city, no, you're gonna listen to us, you screwed us over.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but I was just repeating what it says in here.
So, well, could, as in going in that direction, could the South, we're not approving any projects or
No.
anything, we're just hearing an idea tonight, but could we, as the Southwest Common Council, write a letter to Baya Muhammad and say, no, no, that there needs to be, that the city needs to help us have a huge public meeting in the Southwest to start looking at this and to hold his feet to the fire. And at that meeting, he needs to say who he's engaged. He can't just say, oh, it's really hard. He's got to tell us who has he reached out to.
Right.
So can we hear the presentation now?
Yep.
Wait a second, though.
Wait a second.
Because
though.
before the presentation, that's what she was saying, Bonnie was saying, don't get off this subject. Are we in agreement that the Southwest Common Council should write a letter to the city, to Baya Muhammad, and say, we are in agreement that he should, at this point, absolutely not be let out of his responsibilities?
Yes.
So are you putting a motion in to write the letter?
Yes.
So Eleanor has put it in a motion. Can we have a second?
Can I have a little bit of feedback from Harlan there? Because we had a lot of discussion at the last 19th Ward Community Association meeting. If you have any thoughts or...
But pretty much the consensus with everybody there and the feedback afterwards is that his promise that he did not do anything that he promised along the way. And people were saying no. You want a restaurant? That's what he promised. Because if you read all the visual stuff for all the contracts with him, basically, as you have at the back, the commissioner already knows that in order for anything for him to vote, he needs the entire community to be engaged
Right.
and that also said that it wasn't our job to say what we wanted there. It was Ron Christensen's job to come and support any proposal and say, here's what I'm suggesting if I can't put a restaurant here. What do you guys think? And he hasn't done any of that at all. It's very good.
So then that goes to confirm what Eleanor is asking, is that do we as a common council approve to send notification to Baya Mohammed that no decision on his behalf shall be accepted by the community until he receives community input?
Yeah, yeah.
And disclosure of his efforts, who he's spoken to specifically.
And full disclosure.
Yeah, and I think that somehow or other in this whole thing, I've talked to Jackie, and I know that you really want a restaurant, but if in fact a restaurant doesn't come down, my only thing here is that we have been fleeced by an awful lot of people in this city who have taken money for varieties of different things they said that they were going to do and they didn't do it. And this and it's not like that they gave us money, but they got money. They got money from tax breaks, from low interest this, from committee, from everything that you could think of. Somehow or other, if he does not fulfill this contract, he needs to return the money. And in returning the money, it should pay for anything that's alternative, if in fact an alternative comes down.
My only question to alternative, though, is if he does put something in educational, what will be put in that says you have to keep this going for 10 years, 15
That's right.
years?
Well, that's
Because
part of the contract.
once this is released, you can do that for 1 year,
Right.
and you can screw us one more time.
Well, not if it's written in the contract.
Right.
Yeah, it needs to be
It's gonna
written,
be
you're
very
right.
When it's
clear.
It has to be
Oh yeah, this has to be very carefully done.
Released pending.
And also, we have to make sure that even if we got a restaurant, it has to be something that's been suitably vetted so we have a good sense of confidence that it's going to survive for more than 6 months. And I've heard some feedback saying that, gee, maybe the reason we've had problems with first the sushi place and then the walk over there is that perhaps the person that was brought in should have been more able to deal with the business end of it, and has there been as much advertising as there should be, etc. So whoever he brings in, we've got to make sure that they're properly vetted.
I don't know if vetting for a restaurant is going to be the solution, because restaurants fail every day. I mean, we have major restaurants in Henrietta along Jefferson Road. Even, the chicken wing place. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Closed down.
It would not be good for our community to put a restaurant in there and have it fail. Because then when someone wants to get a loan to put a restaurant in there, it's going to fail.
It has a history.
So we need to be very careful that we don't put something in there that we know is going to be a failure, because that is a mark against the community.
Right.
Well,
It's better to
let's
put
let
something else in
John's-
there.
Let's hear what John
Okay.
So we're in agreement that a letter should go out to Baya Mohammed. Is there anybody that has an alternative position? I like doing minority opinions. That anybody feels like, no, don't send that letter.
Well, we should put, we've got to craft the letter first,
Right.
and make sure
Well,
that
yeah, that's what
it
she's talking
makes
about.
sense,
Maybe send it
and
out.
then send it out and make sure
Okay.
that
So we'll work on that.
enough people buy
The
into
general
that.
census is we don't want this guy to get off without doing
Right,
something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the letter that we got today, and I forwarded to some of you. He sent a letter, checking to see if we'd gotten the part about the agreement, and mentioned who was going to be the person at the city that and said, well, I don't really need the Southwest Common Council approval.
He said that? He
Yeah.
said that?
Yeah, which is true. It's absolutely true. He doesn't need our approval,
It needs public.
but it gave me a chill when I read it, because it sounded like, well, I don't have to please you guys. Well, he hasn't been around Southwest Common Council enough, because they told us we couldn't get 16 reopened either. So we just want to make sure that we are in this for the long haul, and that, you know, we're going to find something that's going to work, and not just.
And you know what, there
So
should
with
be an
that said-
escrow where he needs to put money in an escrow account also.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, really, like, the more you put in it, then you can negotiate the things out. But like, even for him to set up an escrow and put his own money.
Do you know who he's seeing
Do we know
at the city?
At the city.
Dating?
who he's seeing? He just mentioned who the
same thing that's-
the same thing that's in there, who the neighborhood and business development person is.
Okay.
And, what he said was correct, and we knew that beforehand. It isn't us who are going to approve or shoot down, what will be reviewed at a public hearing, but we certainly want to inform the community so that whoever shows up at that hearing isn't hearing it for the first time and gets bamboozled into voting yes.
Were you the only one that received that letter?
No, I think Lynette got it.
Well,
Yeah.
he didn't say that. Here's the letter. It says it's to Lynette and John. My understanding from Patty Utero is that you now have the covenant information you were looking for. Mohammed Bey can make the decision regarding releasing the restaurant requirement without council approval. If you need anything else, please let me know.
Oh, that's still the same.
Same, yeah.
Or
That's what he said.
Without the council approval,
Yes.
doesn't say about the community, does it?
No, it doesn't.
No, he realizes that it's the community, but I think he may have been under the impression that this was
The
the community, and it's a lot more than that.
The 19th Ward Community Association, whatever we write and whatever, doesn't mean the rest of you are going to agree with what we do.
No,
Mhm.
but he does.
See, I wasn't too sure if that council was council or city council.
I think he's talking about the Southwest
I
County
think he's talking
Council.
about the Southwest County
Yes,
Council,
he is.
which he sees as
A representative of the
Quadrant,
Southwest.
representative because there's
Well,
people from all.
this is going to be a long, hard fight, but I think that this is where you got to go out and
Yeah.
make sure that everybody in the world knows where we're at and who's there, and get many hundreds
Mhm.
of people at this meeting,
But can
because
you
the
make-
city has gotten, like all of a sudden we have parcel 5, and you just want to be very careful here.
So with that said,
Wait, I just want to say this, he doesn't understand what we can do as a group in front of Staybridge and the dog. Slow down in traffic? Are you kidding? All of us walking very slowly? I mean, in front of every driveway? I mean, does he understand the power of people when they organize and mobilize against someone like him? Oh, please.
Well, I would choose to believe that it's that he is just trying to do the right thing, and we're just going to help him
Right.
do it. Okay, John,
Hit it, John.
you're on.
You're on. Let's hear it.
All of you are correct in your opinions and beliefs about what has gone before this. The hurt and the pain and the loss of the Southwest Quadrant is real. It's real in terms of the loss of the riverfront area that has a link to the Olmsted Park. There had been an alienation of parkland to make that happen. There had been a promise to the neighborhood that there would be a need met, which at that time was concrete in terms of the need for a restaurant. We've been through the process of watching the plan for a restaurant evolve to a 3-story, 5-story, whatever, now becoming an 11-story property there. I can appreciate the pain and understand the grief about what has been essentially removed from the neighborhood and not made of use in the neighborhood. That's the crisis. This is the opportunity. By saying no to this is actually a chance to have transparency. By having the Southwest Common Council and its constituents saying, no, we do not want to move forward until we get information explaining how we got to where we are right now. Was there the good faith efforts to secure new restaurant interests? So it is fair, it is just to do that research process of what went before, because that'll help to set the stage, clear the air, and also I think make it a greater sense of responsibility for now having use of that land there. That with the ownership of that property also comes responsibility. And this now becomes the occasion for the southwest quadrant to say, what good is that place? And I said there it can be good, that out of the, whatever you would call it, misdeeds or misperceptions or misunderstandings, or even harsher terms, we now have the chance now to meet a need for the neighborhood, which is a southwest, or rather Brooks Crossing, interactive technology center. You have the unbuilt out space there, which creates the opportunity to fill that space with the technology, the hands-on opportunities to learn about smartphones, tablets, computers, 3D printers, distance learning. So our neighborhood's got a need for education and good health. What you have now is basically an opportunity to use this space in a way that can meet a neighborhood benefit. The suggestion is to have a high-tech, hands-on learning center at that location because it can have mutual benefits. By having a state-of-the-art technology center there, our students who live in the Genesee Street and Plymouth Avenue area can walk to the location. We have the ability for the nearby seniors at the Brooks Landing Senior Complex there, the Plymouth Gardens rather, that they could have the benefit of telemedicine. Just today I saw a feature that allows you to have your irises scanned by a person using the telemedicine technique and learn about bilirubin levels in your body or something. Or it's just simply the ability for our person seeking jobs to navigate their way through the complexity of filling out a job application. Also for our neighbors to learn about how to apply for medical benefits or whatever. So by having a location where people can come to, where you have these technologies, that becomes a center that benefits the youth and the seniors of our neighborhood. At the same time, to make it a mutual benefit and also to help sustainability, because you need to be able to maintain this over a many-year period, you need to have strong partners. To me, the natural partner at that location is University of Rochester. They too have got a need there. They have what is called the I Zone in their new Rush Rees Library area. It's going to be a maker's space, a group learning place, and they call it collaboratory. The goal is to take that opportunity of having a collaboratory in the same building at that first floor restaurant space, have our youth and our seniors benefit from that, but also in the evening hours, let the University of Rochester students use it for their collaboratory and planned study activities. So I'm asking is for the persons of Southwest Quadrant to take a look at what good is that place, look at it as being a chance to have something of benefit. What was basically the catalyst for my thinking about this was a grant called or rather a funding source called the Buffalo and Rochester Smart Schools. There's actually $26.9 million that was announced July 25th by Governor Cuomo that I believe could be used to help sustain this, but I also believe it needs to be done as a partnership as well. So what I'm asking is for the residents of Southwest Quadrant to entertain the notion of using that space to develop a interactive technology center with state-of-the-art materials. We find from the library that, for example, some people are averse to buying new technology because they don't know how to use it. But by having a location to practice how to use a smartphone or how to use a printer, they'll be wonderful. The ability to do 3D printing. I've given the example before of a local charter school called Virtus that is using 3D technology with their students to develop artificial prosthetic limbs for persons with disabilities. These are students learning how to use printers to make something very, very practical. What I'd like to do is to have for our neighborhood the opportunity to access technology, but also within the context of the mentors and navigators who will be the students of the University of Rochester. I think that the location is ideal for drawing the best minds, namely the students themselves and their teachers, to come to that location to then create programs either for instructional learning, learn how to adapt to new technologies, access distance learning, but also telemedicine. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, John. That was great. Questions for John? Concerns?
Cost.
Well, one of the things that I was told by a teacher, a professor at the U of R, said you won't get support through financial support through the school side. But if you, because of how they do their money, but if you go to the medical side, they have the money for research, and they're the ones that are so connected to the telemedicine. And that is when where you could get some funding for something like that. The other thing is the library is very, very interested. They've had a separate meeting in that location because they would, without question, the libraries would, without question. Right? Hi. I forgot. Yeah. Oh, we're meeting in the library.
Yeah, you know
so the
that.
libraries really want. So there may, there. With that many partners and that many key partners, I think that opens you up to higher capacity grant, being able to write grants and being, I could see Oasis being part of that. And with those kinds of partnerships, I would think that would open us up to being able to get grants. That's awesome.
Now, the STEM grants are, health and the STEM grants are all over. So I'd like to say that at the last meeting that I was participated in with Ron Christensen, I did this project. This was the basis for the meeting, and I did state to him that his philanthropy was something that's very needed and expected.
Who's this?
With Ron Christensen.
Oh, yeah.
As far as getting money from the school, I think if we had people approach the school part for money who went to the school, they have millions and millions and millions in their endowment fund. And if you get the students who were there and who have donated money to the school to say, hey, I want my money to go for this.
By the school, you mean the U of R?
U
or
of
what?
R,
Yeah.
Yes.
So something about the city school district that we learned at the education committee meeting, Liz Hallmark attends, and they're trying to create a maker's space, which is like really hands-on education, which is going on all around the country, and for well-funded libraries, they're already doing that. But they're talking about taking, I think, the second floor of the central office and creating a maker space so that people can come in and see it. Well, why not create that maker space over here so that it's in a community and you can really test? Who's really going to come out to the...
What is a maker space?
A maker space is learning that's designed to foster the STEM, the mathematical group learning. It's set up so that you can
And it's just literally making things.
Making things.
It's a place where, like as Eleanor mentioned, public libraries already have maker spaces. Not here in Rochester. But Syracuse has a maker space that has sewing machines and print button makers and huge, large-scale printing and God knows what. But any making physical things and the equipment to do it.
So Jen, you were a part of discussions, you and Patty Otero, and the library does have an interest. Would you be able to share with us what the position is for the library to date?
Well, I don't think it's changed since the meeting. We had the meeting, as Lynette said, with Ron, and I had spoken up a couple meetings ago about John's presentation. I said, this is what public libraries are doing in other places. Everything he's talked about, I can find a public library that's doing it. And many are doing it, not just one here and there. So I passed the information on to Patty Otero, who's our director for the library, and she was very excited about the possibility and the opportunity. And so yeah, as everyone said, we're still interested. I think it would be a natural partnership. It's possible that we could get the city to submit some funds to help run the place, groundswell is gonna have to come from you all asking for it. I know Patty had an informal impromptu meeting with Bea and gave him the bare bones at least of this idea. I don't know anything further than that. And so I think Patty's waiting to hear more from you all and your ideas and your desires and what other partners we could work with. I think, I would guess, to tap into the money that John mentioned, that's the school district, that's the money for the smart schools. I think we'd have to have our CSD as a partner in this. I don't think we're going to get any of that money if our CSD isn't involved in this.
I think you have to think big too. I think this is one of the deals that I we're all kind of walking around with our little hands and our little hats and whatever. But I think that this, if this was really put together in a really creative way, I just finished writing another grant, and in looking around for monies, there are people out there that really want to really make a significant difference. And what's great about Rochester is that we have the worst school system in New York State. And you can't get much lower than that. And I think that that's a selling point in terms of really doing something that could be replicated. This doesn't necessarily, and as I've done looking at a few libraries also, and there's some really interesting things that are done at libraries. There's also some interesting collaborative things that are done with universities and educational facilities. And I think that there's also some people out there who have these little pockets of money, whether it's the Melinda Gates Foundation or whatever, that if this was presented in such a way, I think it could catch somebody's interest and put it out. But I'm still saying, let this guy pay for a lot of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And we do have some absolutely phenomenal philanthropists in Rochester proper, that and it's easy to find them because their names are all over everything. Yeah, so if you go into Rochester General Hospital and you go from the side, that side parking lot, and you walk down, their names are right. As a matter of fact, I have a picture of their names, and all you gotta do is find out how to contact them and send them a letter and ask them for money, because they give a lot of it. So we have a lot of givers in Rochester. So when Bonnie's saying think big, I agree with her.
You can always come down, you can't go up, and Bonnie?
Right.
We'll take care of Christensen.
Yeah.
Well, I just think in terms of really making the space usable and things like that. That's what. But technology, all the stuff that you really need for this, and to really have a creative environment. It's like when I go to Asia and I see these nomads over there. There's like 20,000 nomads that are working on computers in these little plum office buildings, and they're creating these things with their computers and whatever. There's lots of people. I've seen several kids from the 2-3 years that I've been there are millionaires now, and because they've had the energy and the engineering that they've really gotten some good ideas about how to do things and really help people. I think it's a great idea. I think that we got several things that are going, and somebody really needs to be a project manager on this, and obviously it's not me, and it's not John for his project, but a kind of an overall project kind of a thing, and probably it should be somebody from the 19th Ward that is because they own the covenant at this point. You know what I mean? So we can't all sit here and say, yeah, it's a great idea, and I can tell you right now, I'm going home and watch the ball game and see my team lose. So.
Yeah. I don't know. The 19th Ward owns the covenant.
It's the Southwest.
It's the Southwest, I think, right?
Does it?
Yeah. I think probably Plymouth Plex probably got the worst end of the deal because more of them were going down Plymouth Avenue, and it affected the 19th Ward mainly because they all now come on to Genesee. But do you have any history of who was involved with it when they got this covenant written, Harlan?
I'll talk to Rick Brzezinski, and you were probably listening to his band the other night. He was the project manager on this Brooks Landing thing, and I think he's somebody that you can really, because I had lunch with him, and he has a lot of the old history stuff, and I
Yeah.
think you might want to even start at that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know.
Yeah, and we've talked with Dana, who definitely was there from the beginning as well. Yes, so
Okay.
with that said,
We got a round table to
we
do
have
yet.
Oh,
you?
No,
Okay.
she recommended, maybe the Southwest Common Council should be the project manager.
Somebody.
But if we don't move on this, they're gonna let him off the hook.
Without a doubt.
I'm sorry?
without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
Yes.
So,
And my buddy Carol Lee is going off council now, and she is just hot to try on this guy, but she's not going to be there.
Well, why doesn't she come and she can be it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I can't speak for her, but
Do
she's
you
going
have
to be
suggestions,
retired soon.
As far as who could lead something like this, would have the time to devote to,
I could run it by our executive committee, but right now, I don't see a lot of people having that much time to really focus on.
I will work as interim project manager to help to assist John
Get this thing going.
to get this thing to keep the momentum up. To keep the momentum up, I will do that.
I will too, it'll be a
It's a great
team.
idea.
Yeah.
Sounds like a subcommittee.
We got a team.
We got a team. Okay,
Yes.
great. John, you have a team. We are a team. All right. So with that said, Eleanor, did you write up who the team was?
Oh, right.
All right.